Yellow there. Welcome to another episode of Electric Sheep. I just forgot. Oh, I forgot the title. Let's get things going with Prisoner Exchange.
Prisoner exchange. For most civilizations, the exchange of culture begins with ambassadors, polished diplomats versed in the subtleties of language, tradition, and respect. But when the Mal Arath nomads arrived in their colossal wandering starships, entire cultures adrift in the void, they made a request that chilled even the most cynical bureaucrats of Earth. They asked for a prisoner exchange, but not just any prisoners. They sought the worst humanity had to offer, the most heinous, the most monstrous. In return, they would send their own. After a grim selection process, Earth chose Charles Batches, a name spoken in hushed fear even in maximum security prisons. Cult leader, terrorist, serial butcher of over 200 innocents, including his own followers. His crimes weren't driven by madness, but by a terrible clarity, a philosophy soaked in blood. When asked why he volunteered for the exchange, Batches merely smiled and said, "I've already been to hell. Might as well see what lies beyond it." In return, the Molarith sent Gogbamog, a name that echoed through their own dark history. A virtual reality torture artist, a self-styled healer who led soldiers into digital recreations of their worst nightmares, urging them to confront their traumas through endless looping suffering. His methods left hundreds broken, and in over 47 cases, he had personally overseen their suicides, each one broadcast to those considering the same fate as a final testament of peace. To the Mole Arath, his crimes were unforgivable. Yet on Earth, things took a strange turn. Our people dissected Gogmog's methods with clinical fascination. His dark virtual constructs became case studies in neurological resilience. Debates roared through the medical and philosophical communities. Some argued he was a pioneer in trauma therapy, his techniques merely misunderstood. Others framed his assisted suicides as merciful euthanasia. Legal protections were discussed, his victims reclassified as consenting adults who sought release from suffering. We humanized him. Some even sympathized with him. The Mole Arath, upon witnessing this, recoiled in horror. To them, the mere acceptance of Gogbamog's philosophy was a stain upon humanity's soul. They found our culture of merciful exits barbaric, a society willing to abandon its wounded rather than carry them. And yet, in their eyes, we had chosen a man who rejected suicide as a final answer, Charles Batches. It was a paradox that troubled them deeply. On their ships, far beyond the reach of Earth's moral gymnastics, the Mol Arath did what we could not. They took Charles Batches, this architect of death and despair, and placed him under their care. Not in chains, but among their most devout moral philosophers, their spiritual healers. They sought not to punish, but to redeem, even him. And in the quiet of those starfaring halls, Charles Batches, the man who mocked Earth's religions and bathed in blood, found something he never had on Earth, a culture that did not fear him, did not glorify his darkness, but sought to understand why he chose the path he did. Whether he found redemption or served only as a warning, we may never know. But the Mul Arath left us with a final message, transmitted in the plainest of terms. You cradle monsters and call them misunderstood. You offer death as kindness and forget the strength of endurance. We take your monster not to save him, but to show that even the blackest hearts can learn to walk toward the light. And perhaps one day, your world will understand that true mercy is not in release, but in hope. And with that, they vanished into the dark corridors of space, leaving humanity to wrestle with its own reflection.
Well, I liked how that turned out. I think it might be a little bit filled with unpleasant imagery and subjects, so I can understand if some people don't like it, and that's reasonable because I think the only censorship that is good is self censorship for the most part. You gotta learn to dial things back sometimes. So if people think the subject matter in the story was uncomfortable, feel free to say so. And I may kind of agree with you a little bit because I don't like doing stories about unpleasant things, but I think there are doorways to discussing unpleasant things, and those are part of life and part of stories in general. But it's up to you to decide what's good and what's not. So I'll just wish you all the luck in the world, and I want you to remind you that I am Joseph Arthur Roszell and that I love you. Okay, bye bye.